Hey, everybody, I'm Bald Retelling. Today I'm gonna tell you the story of a guy who only cares about two things: watching a porn movie and exercising his. This young Italian man's name is John, and he's addicted to pornography. He watches porn and masturbates every day. John likes to do it because in real life he can't do the kind of things that are shown in pornography in real life. John only has two things that he cares about. One is his body, that he goes to the gym every day for. Two is his house, which he cleans with his own hands every day. John works as a bartender, so he always the opportunity to bring any of the girls to his house, every time he brings a new girl home. A new girl, he takes her straight into bed, but John likes watching controversial masturbation in the evening. As usual, John goes out with his friends to impress the new girl, and seeing a bunch of girls, each one of them. John sees a lucky girl named Barbara, who he assigns the number 10. He goes up to her and tries to get to know her. They dance, and then John tries to seduce Barbara and asks her if she'd like to go on with him, but Barbara is not that kind of girl. She says no, goes home. Resenting Barbara, John decides to meet another girl. He brings her home. They indulge in the magic of passion. But even after intimacy, John watches porn on his laptop at night afterwards. He masturbates. He says porn is better than sex, and because in porn, the girls are more relaxed. They're more capable of doing more. Whereas in real life, everyone's gray. They're all the same, but the next day he goes to church. He repents, and in confession, he confesses that he's been doing indecent exposure with two girls this week. He's looked at porn exactly 17 times this week. After that, John starts having dinner with his family. His father decides to argue with him. Sister, always on her cell phone, not paying attention to anyone, all for this ointment, telling John to hurry up to find a nice girl so he can make her his life partner that night. John watches porn again, and it takes him for hours to find the right video. The next morning, he has a visit. His friends come over. John admits that he has a crush on the girl in the red dress. He really likes her, but he doesn't know a name for her. John has to go to a bar. He asks around about the girl, and he finds out her name is Barbara, and then he finds him on Facebook, and from there Joe invited her to lunch. The next day, Barbara comes to meet him. She wonders where he got her info on Facebook when he didn't even have a name. John starts to make excuses at first, but then he reveals the truth, and she decides to take him to a romantic movie. John doesn't like the movie. He thinks it was made for kids, but Barbara loves it, and then they both kiss, and Barbara goes home. John comes to church for confession this week. He's only kissed one girl. I watched porn 22 times after that. John goes on a date with Barbara again, and after the dates are over, he tries to get close to her, but Barbara wants to have a serious relationship with him and deliberately getting to know his friends and his family and his friends and his family. Night classes. John is tying up his work so he can attend classes and get at night. He masturbates, but not as he usually does with Barbara's picture. And we realize that he's not driven by love, but by the desire to possess this girl. He goes a few days. John finds Barbara with his friends, and he also meets Barbara's friend. Their relationship has been going on for a month, but so far Barbara hasn't allowed John to be intimate with her. John tells his family that he's fallen in love with a beautiful girl named Barbara, and his mother is very happy to hear it. One day during John's class, Barbara calls him to tell him that she's going to come over to his house. John is happy to know that tonight he's going to have a hot evening in class. John finds a crying girl and an investor, but ignores her tears. Back home, finally becomes intimate for the first time with Barbara, but then he's as usual, frustrated with intimacy and starts watching porn again. Of watching it, he gets caught by Barbara and very shocked to see her boyfriend watching porn. She gets angry and walks out on him. Because that's what Jonah's being excused for. He says that the video was sent by a friend of his and he was just watching it for fun. and promising that from now on he'll never watch porn after hearing it's Barbara, stops. But despite all this, John keeps watching porn, but because of Barbara he does it on his cell phone. One day in class, Esther is driving him around while he's watching porn. She comes up to him and tries to talk to him, but John still ignores her after that. John takes a barber to introduce her to his family. His mom really likes her a lot. He goes to the facility with his family, but he doesn't tell them he broke up with Barbara. After he gets home, he starts watching porn again. Right at this point with John, where John confesses that he's engaged in signs 7 times this week, but he hasn't watched porn this whole week. Then later that day, outside of class, Esther gives John an adult book for adults and says maybe it would help him. John says he doesn't need it because he has a girlfriend and he doesn't like to watch porn. A few days later, John goes with Barbara to go shopping. John tells her that he needs to buy some detergent for the house. When he finds out that he cleans his own house, Barbara is indignant, says it's not a job for them to do. Housekeeper from now on. He doesn't have to clean houses anymore, but John likes him picking out the house. He feels no shame. Barbara says it makes a difference to her, and he's not going to do his own cleaning under pressure. He has to give in that same night. The same night, Esther asks John about school, then starts asking him about himself and his girlfriend. John doesn't like it, so he grabs his note and leaves, and he goes to his house where Barbara is waiting for him with a disgruntled face. She said that she found his story and secondly knows that he's been lying to her and hasn't stopped. Watching porn, John didn't delete the story from his browser because he thought Barbara wasn't checking his laptop. John trying to convince her that watching porn it's normal. There's nothing wrong with it, especially since watching porn and watching movies are the same thing. Hearing that, Barbara says that movie porn are different. John apologizes to her, but she doesn't listen to him and breaks up with him. And then he gets better. He starts watching more porn. He starts to like the single life because he can do whatever he wants and there's no one to interrupt him. John spends a few days on automatic. He goes to a bar at night and tells to his friends that he's dumped Barbara. The girl falls in love with his eyes. He also gets close to her by bringing her to his house. On the ride the next day, John, without talking, gets mad at the driver in front of him. He also breaks his car window after he goes to church and goes to confession with his father. He doesn't understand why he spilled so much today. He even broke a car window. Also this week, he watched porn 35 times this week. After confession, John goes to bed. John's friend Bobby comes to his house. Initially, John asks him to leave and says he's busy, but Bobby goes inside anyway and asks him why he broke the car window and how they Barbara's breakup. John tells Barbara that she caught him looking at porn and decided to break up with him. When Bobby hears this, can't believe she dumped John over something so insignificant, and then John goes to class. After class, John meets a tester and then they move into John's car and have sex. After getting this intimacy, John also told Esther Barbara he admits that he never thought he'd get dumped because of watching porn. He also says that he's not addicted to porn and he can break up with it anytime. He doesn't have an addiction and that's why he watches porn, because he likes it. Esther asked if he could masturbate without watching porn. The next day, John tries not to watch porn. And that's when he goes into withdrawal. That same night, John meets a tester. They both go to his house. John tells her that he hasn't watched porn this week, but he couldn't masturbate, where he also admits that he's addicted to pornography. Esther explains to him that he just likes porn, and that he never tried to understand his partner and he was always thinking about his own. Esther suggests that John take a bath, but when Esther goes to get his towel, she starts to cry. He asks why she's always crying, but she tells him that her husband and son died in a car accident about a year ago, which makes Esther feel even sadder. After that, John making love this time to John really likes this feeling. He's never ever happened to him before. After that, John completely stops watching porn. Well, because of that, he starts getting angry about all sorts of things. Afternoon, he goes to church and confess. After confession, he goes home and tells his family that he broke up with Barbara. The family starts to judge him, but the sister supports the brother, saying that Barbara was taking advantage of him. She needed him like a cog. She just wanted to make him and take advantage of him.